What is going on, everybody? We are back with the another and the final mock draft of the 2024 NFL draft season. Wow, the draft is right around the corner. If you're watching this, it's probably today. And I'm going to have a 2-round mock as promised in previous videos. All 32 teams will be picking today, at least once, some twice, some more than that. But I'm excited for this. This is my final mock. It is going to be predictive, so I'm going to not pick like what I would do what I did in previous mocks. This is what I think is going to happen all the way through. There will be trades. There will be surprise picks. So let's just dive right into it. I unlike my previous mocks where I kind of go where I'm at and wing it a little bit. I'm prepared with notes. The first overall pick is the easiest one in the draft, Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears. I would be floored if this was not the case. The draft starts at pick 3 or 4, in my opinion, depending on your argument. But number 1 is Caleb Williams, and number 2 is Jayden Daniels. Listen, I could hear an argument for Drake May, and if you asked me a couple months ago, it was Drake May. But as we're getting closer and closer to the draft, all the smoke seems to be saying that Jayden Daniels is the guy in Washington. He's shutting down rumors that he wouldn't want to be there. He's absolutely an awesome fit in Washington, and I think Washington should be very excited. I think Jayden Daniels is the second best quarterback in this class. So Washington fans should be excited. New England at pick 3. Now, I just mentioned the draft maybe starts at 3 or 4. I could hear an argument that New England should not pick Drake May here. Fully could hear an argument. However, given that Gerard Mayo and I'm forgetting their new GM's name, both of them have said, we want a pass thrower. We want a young franchise quarterback, and Drake May is that. Can you guarantee that JJ McCarthy is that? Probably not. Would that be a risky play? Absolutely. Can you guarantee that Michael Penix is that? As much as I love Michael Penix in this draft, no. Can you guarantee that Bo Nix is that? No. And you're not guaranteeing that Drake May is that, sure, but you're guaranteeing a much more talented prospect. It just seems like it makes the most sense in the world. You don't have a team that goes into a draft with 2 options and is willing to trade back and say, oh, if we get Jayden Daniels, if we get Bo Nix, if we get, I'm sorry, not Jayden Daniels, if we get Michael Penix, we get Bo Nix, we get JJ McCarthy, who cares? No, teams go in with a list of who they want. And I believe Drake May is definitely at least 3rd on that list, maybe even 2nd for the New England Patriots. And so he's going to be the pick here. The Cardinals at pick 4. You could hear an argument that the draft starts at pick 4, right? Arizona could certainly trade out. But just as much as I would be surprised if New England trades out of that pick, I'd be surprised if Arizona trades out of that pick. It would need a king's ransom to get Arizona to move off Marvin Harrison Jr. Their wide receiver core is awful. Jeff Wilson is pretty much their number 1 wide receiver. I'm sure they have Trey McBride at tight end, but they need pass catchers desperately. And there's pressure on that regime to start winning soon. If you want to get good production out of Kyler Murray, which you certainly want to do, considering they're building around him, clearly, Marvin Harrison Jr., the best receiver in this class, is the way to do that. And now here's where actually the draft starts, in my opinion. LA Chargers at pick 5 certainly have the opportunity to take the best player available. Could that be Joe Alt and they lean into the offensive line? Sure. Could that be Malik Neighbors just getting the best wide receiver because they desperately need a wide receiver? Sure. It could be either of those. But I think with Jim Harbaugh in town, there's a desperate need for multiple things. One, there's a desperate need for a pass catcher, right? You have not Josh Doxson. Why am I blanking on his name? I just had it in my head, and then I'm gonna have to look up Chargers depth chart. This is embarrassing. TCU wide receiver. Josh Doxson was a previous one. Quentin Johnston, who I think, if you believe in his talent, which I don't necessarily, you believe in his talent as a high-end wide receiver too. There's no way in the world he's a wide receiver 1. You also have Joshua Palmer there, who could be a wide receiver 3. You need a number 1 weapon. So I could certainly understand sticking and picking and taking Malik Neighbors and being happy about it. If that was the case, could see the Giants pivoting to a franchise quarterback like JJ McCarthy. However, I think there will be a desperate need for teams to move up to pick 5. And the LA Chargers are going to be able to hold a bidding war for that pick. Unlike Marvin Harrison Jr., I think Malik Neighbors could be moved off of. If they get 2 firsts in this and maybe another 3rd or 4th in another draft, I could certainly see the Chargers trading down. And that's what I'm going to have today. Minnesota, desperate for a quarterback, I think is going to make the move up to pick 5, I'm sorry. So Minnesota will be trading their pieces. Now it's going to be 11 and 23 for 5, and I guarantee Minnesota is going to be giving up another piece. Maybe it's one of these 2 5s right here, with 157 or 167. Maybe it's a 3 or a 4 next year. They got 2 5s next year. I don't know, but I'm not here to build the package. I'm here to just predict the first 2 rounds of the draft. This trade machine will not let me trade even more capital. As you can see, it's already saying it's too much. So I'm putting in a third here for the Chargers. I got a comment on my last video. Oh, the Chargers wouldn't give up a third again in that deal to go with Minnesota. Listen to the words I'm saying. The trade machine will not let me not include that third. So I think it's going to be 11, 23, and at least a 4th round pick. That's what I think is going to happen. And they trade with the Chargers. They move up to the 5th overall pick, and they take their franchise quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. You got great weapons there, right? Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, the tight end that they got from Detroit that I can never remember the name of. I almost said Trey Hendrickson, but he's in the news for certainly other reasons. And I'm gonna have to Google Minnesota's depth chart. It's a rough day already. It's a rough day for my name knowledge. Obviously, you have Aaron Jones in the backfield, who I think is an addition. Certainly, TJ Hawkinson is who I was thinking of course. Minnesota gets their pass thrower to go with all those pass catchers. And at the end of the day, JJ McCarthy doesn't have to start right away. Sam Darnold's there. He could certainly be a starter for at least the front half of the year, and you bring in McCarthy later in the year and see what you got. New York Giants at pick 6. As much as I think they need a quarterback, they desperately need a wide receiver. And they might have the 23rd best quarterback in the league, maybe, if we're doing a power rankings. They have the 32nd best wide receiver core. Adding Malik Nabers, a guy who has elite play after the catch, a guy who's just an elite weapon all the way through, I think is easily the 2nd best wide receiver in this class. Adding him to that wide receiver core instantly increases it exponentially. And I think he's instantly a wide receiver 1 on that team. Tennessee at pick 7. Now, this is where the intrigue happens. This is where maybe the picks aren't chalk. Tennessee has desperate needs in multiple areas, and they're a few years away from really contending. And there's going to be some teams that sit here that know that Chicago is sitting here at pick 9, who probably would take Rome Odunze if available. And there's going to be a team desperate to get another wide receiver, get a wide receiver weapon like Rome Odunze to add to an offense that could use another one. A team whose quarterback is certainly desperate to make this situation work, who has a limited amount of time left, who is all in to win now. And that's my New York Jets. Listen, the Jets here sit at pick 10. I would be a little surprised if they pick at 10. I could see a trade up like I'm going to have them doing. I could see a trade back and they take a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. and recoup some 2nd round picks. However, they are win now. Joe Douglas, if this season doesn't go well, Joe Douglas is gone. Robert Saleh is gone. Aaron Rodgers might be gone. This season needs to go well for the Jets. And any infusion of talent you can provide is certainly a good one. You brought in Mike Williams on the offensive side of the ball to add another weapon to that wide receiver room. However, he's always hurt. And you add that in with the MetLife Field. I could see the Jets being desperate in a need to trade up and get Rome Odunze. And so I think they give up, obviously, 10 for 7. I think they give up. I wouldn't be shocked if they give up the 1st next year, honestly. I don't think that's necessary. I think a 2nd, and it's not going to let me do that. I would do that right there easily. Trade next year's 2nd for 3 spots up easily. It's not going to let me do that, so I'll send the Titans back a 3rd. I think it might take a 1st, honestly. Maybe the 1st will only, be an issue if they need to trade up to 4 or 5, right? If they're going after Marvin Harrison Jr. Or Malik Nabers, but I just see this as a desperation move for the Jets, and they have to make it work. Adding Rome Odunze alongside Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams, and you got tight ends that are certainly serviceable in Tyler Conklin and Jeremy Ruckert. You got Breece Hall as a weapon in the backfield. You improved that offensive line already. There's a lot of people that have the Jets taking a tackle. I just don't see it. Atlanta at pick 8. It's hard for me not to stick and pick the best defensive player available for them. Dallas Turner, I think, is that. You could argue that Terrion Arnold or Quinyon Mitchell certainly could be the best defensive player and should be the pick of pick 9. Pick 8 rather. I just can't see them passing up on Dallas Turner there to add an elite pass rusher to Raheem Morris's defense. Chicago at pick 9. Sure, they're disappointed that Rome Odunze didn't make it to them, but Joe Alt adding an offensive lineman like him. I mean, obviously Rome Odunze would be a valuable addition for them, but you added Keenan Allen this offseason. You still have Cole Kmet. You still have DJ Moore. You help further solidify that offensive line and protect Caleb Williams. You feel really good about that draft. The best offensive lineman and the best quarterback. Good draft for them. Tennessee at pick 10. Now, Tennessee needs an offensive tackle desperately, and they probably don't love that Joe Alt went right before them. I think if they trade back, they probably have a hope that they'll get Joe Alt. But nonetheless, he's not there. He's not available. They have needs at both left and right tackle. I could see a pick of Olu Fashanu. I could see a pick of J.C. Latham, Tylese Fuaga. All makes sense. Certainly do. I'm going to have them taking Olu Fashanu here just because he's not going to need to be elite right away. And I think that makes a lot of sense as a high upside pick. The Chargers at pick 11. So I have them trading back, certainly, because I said they need a pass catcher and I said they need a tackle. Now, they could certainly go Tylese Fuaga and then come back later in the first round and get a Brian Thomas Jr. or even really an Adonai Mitchell or a Xavier Worthy or a Ladd McConkey or a Xavier Legette, et cetera, right? Troy Franklin. But when you could add an elite pass catcher at 11, like Brock Bowers, I had Brock Bowers going to them in mocks at pick 5 early in the offseason. You trade back, you recoup another first, and you still get an elite pass catcher in Brock Bowers. I like that situation for them. Denver at pick 12 certainly needs help on defense. You pick who's your favorite, Quinyon Mitchell or Terrion Arnold. I would pick Quinyon Mitchell. I think Denver would pick Terrion Arnold. Just an overall really talented corner, and you could pair him alongside Patrick Surtain. You feel good about that. I could hear an argument that the Broncos should go quarterback, and I wouldn't be shocked if they go Bo Nix. That's who I had them taking in my most recent mock draft. But at the end of the day, I don't think the value's there. I could see them trading back or maybe ending up pick 20 something and taking Bo Nix there. Sure, I wouldn't be shocked. But I think Terrion Arnold's a pick here. You can't pass up on that blue chip talent. It's such an important position. And now you have two really good corners in that defensive backfield. And I think Sean Payton sincerely appreciates that. The Vegas Raiders at pick 13, similar to the Denver Broncos. I could easily see them getting a quarterback here. If they get a quarterback, Michael Penix is the guy who I would go for from the Raiders. Really matches their toughness, their culture. I think, elite accuracy and ability to hit receivers on the outside. There's doubts about him throwing on the inside. I'm not worried about that. Obviously, doubts about his health. But I think they desperately need an offensive lineman. So I think Tylese Fuaga certainly could be the pick here. Quinyon Mitchell certainly could be the pick here. The question is, where do I want to go? I'm going to go Tylese Fuaga. That's what I had in my notes here. You add a guy who could play right tackle, he could play right guard. Right tackle is your biggest hole right now, so you probably start him out there. But he's got versatility to move around a little bit. I like the pick for them. New Orleans at pick 14. There's a lot of people who think there's no way they don't go offensive tackle here, and certainly I could see it. But when you have a talent like Jared Verse, who many people think that he should be the best edge rusher off the board, right? The first edge rusher off the board, or the first defensive player off the board with Atlanta's pick of pick 8 potentially. I think New Orleans certainly appreciates edge rushers over the years. Dennis Allen certainly appreciates edge rushers, and that's a valuable part of his system. And while I know Derek Carr needs to be protected more, I just think Jared Verse, and there's already a Florida State, New Orleans, history, connection over multiple players. I could easily see that happening. Indianapolis at pick 15. This is where I think Quinyon Mitchell ends up. If you take Terrion Arnold early, you could argue Quinyon Mitchell. If you take Quinyon Mitchell early, you could argue Terrion Arnold here. Either way, the Colts need help at the corner position. Now, I could see them going wide receiver here. And the same with the Jaguars, who I'll talk in a little bit. I've been flip-flopping with both of those teams between wide receiver and corner. But Quinyon Mitchell's the guy here. I think he's a top 10 talent, and getting him at 15 is certainly a good value. Seattle at pick 16. Listen, Byron Murphy certainly would be a great pick. I would not be against that whatsoever. But I think the smoke around Troy Fautanu is certainly, there's certainly something there. With the ability for him to play inside on the offensive line, which is one of their needs. He could play guard. If one of your two, offensive tackles goes out, right? Charles Cross has an injury, for example, you could put him at tackle. Washington staying in Washington. There's a history with that. I like the pick for them. I think that's good value. I think he's one of the more talented offensive linemen in this draft, certainly. And you feel good about starting him at guard right away if you need to. And if he, like I said, if he needs to play tackle, he could play tackle easily. Jacksonville pick 17. Like I said, I've been cycling between wide receiver and corner for them and the Colts. I think wide receiver is such a need. I know you paid Gabe Davis. We know Gabe Davis is not a number one wide receiver. You let Calvin Ridley go. Sure, you have Evan Ingram, you have Travis Etienne out of the backfield, but you need to provide Trevor Lawrence with another weapon, certainly. The question is, who is that? I have Brian Thomas Jr. as my fourth best wide receiver. I think he makes a good pairing with Gabe Davis. Brian Thomas Jr., a guy who could be really a good red zone threat and end zone threat. I think Trevor Lawrence could, really find him as his favorite target. I think you could see a similar output to the way Baker Mayfield relies on Mike Evans. I think Brian Thomas could be a light version of that in his rookie year. I like that pick for Jacksonville, certainly. Cincinnati at pick 18. I could certainly see them going offensive tackle, 100%. I know you brought in Brown. It's Orlando Brown, right, that they brought in to play right tackle. And that certainly helps fortify the offensive line. But at the end of the day, injuries always happen. And if an injury to offensive lineman happens, you worry about an injury to the quarterback happening next. But I think defensive tackle is certainly a need. You now have Trey Hendrickson, who's asking out, so the defensive line gets a little less deep. If you move on from him, I don't think they're going to. But anyway, Byron Murphy could certainly be the pick here. Big interior defensive presence. I like adding that to the Cincinnati defense. The LA Rams at pick 19. Laiatu Latu has certainly slid here, and I think he's a great fit for LA. I think there's going to be concern about his neck injury, certainly. A guy who, was medically retired for a year. But he's been cleared. I think the Rams have the best access to his medical history, right? Being close, being able to send scouts whenever they want to UCLA games without any cost. But nonetheless, I think the connection is there and he's a good fit in the system. Laiatu Latu, I think, is a good fit for the Rams at 19. The Steelers at pick 20. Listen, the question for me is not who to pick. The question is which tackle between J.C. Latham and Amarius Mims to pick. I think the Steelers, while they could use an additional weapon, while they could, bolster up the interior, right, get a center, maybe JPJ to play center for them, tackle is a bigger need. You get a guy like Amarius Mims or J.C. Latham, you plug him in at right tackle, and you move Broderick Jones over to left tackle. I think you feel really good about that offensive line. And who better than to pair on the tackles with Broderick Jones than Amarius Mims? That's who I'm going to have the Steelers drafting. Moving Broderick Jones over to left tackle is probably his more comfortable position anyway. You got your tackles for now and into the future, right? Miami at pick 21. Well, I think they certainly need help on the offensive line, and protecting Tua is a priority. Johnny Newton, who I think has the talent to go top 15, to help replace Christian Wilkins on the defensive line, is something I just can't pass up for Miami. I just can't do it. Philadelphia pick 22. They have a desperate need, and that need is in the defensive backfield. Cooper DeJean could certainly be the guy here. I could see the Eagles trading up. I didn't have them trading up, but if they feel like a guy, going early, whether that's Terrion Arnold, whether that's Quinyon Mitchell, maybe it is Cooper DeJean they feel they need to trade up for, I could certainly see it happening. Maybe that's trading up with Seattle. Maybe that's trading up with the Colts. Maybe that's trading up with the Raiders. I don't know. But I could certainly see that. However, given that they're sticking and picking Cooper DeJean, I think is the best corner talent on the board. You could argue Nate Wiggins is right there with him, but I think Cooper DeJean is certainly someone Philly's been targeting, at least from what I've seen with rumors. The Chargers at pick 23, so they got Brock Bowers, an elite pass-catching prospect. Now's the time they get that offensive lineman. J.C. Latham, put him at right tackle. Now you got two really good tackles for years to come. You feel good about that offensive line. And now you have a system where Jim Harbaugh can run the ball all he wants. He could take Blake Corum in the fifth or sixth round, right? Get his Michigan running back. And he can run the ball down people's throats, right? He's got Brock Bowers, who's a good blocking tight end, especially for a rookie. And now you've got two really solid tackles. But Brock Bowers can still split out wide and be an elite weapon for you. I feel like the Chargers really made out well with those 2 first-round picks. Dallas, it's tough for me not to say offensive line here. Graham Barton's been the pick for almost every draft. You know, I think the need is desperate for interior offensive linemen. You could play him at guard. If you needed to, you could play him at center. You could move Tyler Smith out to tackle. I think that makes the offensive line significantly improved. Obviously, you would have liked to keep Tyron Smith, but given that he was going to be gone for the price point, I liked the addition of Graham Barton on that line. The Green Bay Packers here, I think they need help at the defensive backfield first and foremost. Nate Wiggins, you could argue he's sliding a little bit depending on how you feel about his talent level. Certainly is a great addition to that defense. Tampa, pick 26. I've had them taking Chop Robinson way too often, but I love the fit, man. I love him as an elite pass rusher off the edge. I think he's an underrated run defender too. Plug him into that Tampa Bay defense, and you've got an improvement already on the defensive line. Arizona, pick 27. It's hard for me to go into these drafts and not just continue to do what I've been doing, but Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kool-Aid McKinstry are 2 blue blood, high-level talent picks that I just feel really good about. And you still got pick 35 to come back and get another talent on the offensive line. Certainly, I could see them going JPJ here, but you feel good about some offensive linemen still available, right? Jordan Morgan, Tyler Guyton, who I passed up. Even Suamadia would be a decent pick in the second round. So adding Kool-Aid McKinstry here, I think you improve the defense and you worry about the offensive line in just a few picks. Buffalo at pick 28. It's not a question of should they take a receiver. It's a question of which receiver. With Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis both gone, you desperately need talent. I know Curtis Samuel's there, and I know who's Khalil Shakir. I don't remember his name. Certainly a fast, wide receiver and has talent and is going to be a valuable wide receiver 3. Could even be a valuable wide receiver 2 by year's end. He's not a wide receiver 1. And if you're drafting on the wide receiver 1 ability, I feel like Adonai Mitchell's the pick here. And I feel like he's got the talent to be the 4th best wide receiver in this class, but there's questions about his work ethic. There's questions about him dogging it on plays. If you're Buffalo, you kind of have to take the risk, and I know they just got rid of a locker room situation with Stephon Diggs, but you hope that this one works out differently, and you pray for the talent, because you certainly need to surround Josh Allen with talent. Detroit at pick 29. Detroit's in a prime trade back scenario. I don't think wide receiver is a big need for them. I think they could wait and take the next best corner available. Who is, it could be Rakestraw. I don't think TJ Tampa is far behind these 2 guys at the top. So I'm going to have Detroit trading back. And I mentioned 2 teams that I think could take a quarterback early in the draft. One of them's going to get their quarterback here. The Las Vegas Raiders are trading up from pick 44. The question is, what are they giving up? Like I said, I'm not here to predict, the package that's being given up for this. But they don't have a first-round pick next year. It's obviously not going to take a first-round pick. A 3rd next year could be the deal. They don't have enough cap. I guess you could give up a 4th or a 3rd this year, but I think the Lions have a good amount of picks. If you give up a 3rd next year, the Lions could then package those 3rds and that 2 to get up into the first round again. You feel good if you're the Lions, you trade back and you get a couple, an extra selection. But if you're the Vegas Raiders, you're trading up for your guy, and that's Michael Penix Jr. I mentioned the talent, the quarterback, the culture fit. I love Michael Penix Jr. being able to learn behind Gardner Minshew. I think they're similar personalities, maybe not similar in the way they play the game. I think Michael Penix Jr. with the right coaching could be a really good quarterback in the NFL, and I think Vegas is going to bank on that. Baltimore Ravens at pick 30. Similar to Buffalo, I think the question is not whether they go receiver, it's which one. And certainly I could hear an argument that they go for a tackle and move them over to right tackle, right? Whether that's Tyler Guyton, whether that's Jordan Morgan. Personally, I'm not a guy who loves taking a tackle to move them to the opposite side. I'd much rather take a tackle that I could focus on moving a little further interior, right? Maybe a tackle to guard or a guard to center, whatever the situation is. I don't love switching sides completely, especially at the offensive tackle position. I think we've just seen it time and time again not work out as well as it could have. And so, given that the top talents here, Tyler Guyton, Jordan Morgan, these are all left tackles. Who's the next right tackle available? I'm going to butcher this name all night. Suamadia could certainly be the pick here. It would be early. I think that the wide receiver is the way to go. Now, I had already Adonai Mitchell going. Xavier Worthy with his speed could be a weapon. Ladd McConkey, I don't love his fit alongside Zay Flowers. I like Xavier Worthy on the outside. I think that's a fun wide receiver combination in Baltimore. Xavier Worthy and Zay Flowers. I didn't even notice that until I picked that. San Francisco at pick 31. I think that similar to Baltimore, they could go for a tackle here. But I think their need is so desperate on the defensive end that I think they reach a little bit for a corner. And that corner is going to be Rakestraw Jr. And now I'm not high on Rakestraw, and I think him being a first round pick would be surprising, frankly. But I think there's certainly talent there, and the 49ers would be the team that could get the best out of it. And if they feel he's the pick, then it's a good pick, and that's the end of the day. What I think that's their biggest need. I think that's the pick there. Kansas City at pick 32. Similar to Baltimore, I think they could go tackle, but a wide receiver is where they're going to go. The question is which one. I like the idea of adding Ladd McConkey on the inside. He feels like an Andy Reid guy, a guy who didn't really have great production in college, but you believe in the talent, you believe in the ability, and you believe in the quarterback throwing him the ball, certainly. So I could see that being the pick. Carolina at pick 33, their first selection of the draft. Welcome to the 2024 NFL Draft, Carolina. You got 2 picks here in pretty quick succession. I think they're going to target an offensive lineman and they're going to target a wide receiver. I think their tackles are pretty set with the money they gave out. Obviously, they signed a few guards this offseason. You could bring in JPJ, and he's a guy who could play guard, could play center, allow some flexibility there if anybody gets hurt. I think maybe they play the waiting game a little bit for an offensive lineman and they get a wide receiver. I think, in my opinion, there's a drop-off between Keon Coleman and Troy Franklin. A lot of people disagree with me, certainly. But I like adding Keon Coleman alongside Deontay Johnson. I think that's a great fit. You get Bryce Young, another weapon. That's what I love the most. New England at pick 34. Listen, they got the quarterback, and as I mentioned at the top of the draft, certain people think they're going to trade back. And if they trade back, they're going to target a tackle. Now they're sitting here at pick 34 with the ability to take Tyler Guyton, who I think is a first-round talent. I like that idea. Tyler Guyton and Drake May are 2 great picks for the New England Patriots. Arizona at pick 35, rather. I mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kool-Aid McKinstry being 2 focuses that would lead them toward the offensive line here. JPJ could certainly be the guy, but you add a tackle with the ability of Jordan Morgan here. You play him at left tackle. You could move him over to right tackle. I'd hear an argument. Either way, I love it. I love it for them. I love those first three picks. I think those are 3 value picks. I mean, as much as it is to get a value at 4, but Marvin Harrison Jr. I think is a value. Kool-Aid McKinstry I think is really slipping down draft boards. He was going top 10 in some mocks at the end of the season. And now Jordan Morgan here, who I think is certainly a first round talent. Love that for them. Washington at pick 36. They got another pick at pick 40. I think they go tackle and weapon here, similar to Carolina going offensive line and offensive pass catcher. The question is what order for the Washington Commanders, and 3 Oregon players here being in close succession. I think one of them goes here, Troy Franklin. I think Washington could believe in. I think pairing him alongside Terry McLaurin could certainly be a fit. You give another weapon to Jayden Daniels, an offense of Jayden Daniels and Austin Eckler and Troy Franklin and Terry McLaurin. I think that's fun. I think that's a lot of fun. The Chargers at pick 37. They already got their weapon. They already got their tackle. I think they could add another weapon here. And there's some talented wide receivers still available. Xavier Legette is certainly someone that I could see being added here. Now, all of a sudden, you talk about your offensive situation. You add J.C. Latham at right tackle. You add Brock Bowers at the tight end position. You add Xavier Legette in the wide receiver core. You feel good. Your number one pass catcher becomes Brock Bowers. You hope that Quentin Johnston turns into something. Let's just do it again. Did I just do it again? Did I mix up uh Quentin Johnson and Josh Doxson? No, Quentin Johnson. I was right. I'm going to continue to struggle with their names. And then Xavier Legette becomes your wide receiver 3. You probably feel pretty good about that. And you still got Joshua Palmer in that wide receiver core. I like that. I like that a lot for the LA Chargers. Pick 38 for the Tennessee Titans. You already got your wide receiver, your offensive lineman. While I could see a wide receiver addition here, you added Calvin Ridley in the offseason. You still got Treylon Burks, who's, a wide receiver 3, hopefully. You still got DeAndre Hopkins, who I think is still a wide receiver 2 in this league. You come in here, I feel like a defensive addition could certainly be the way to go. Darius Robinson, I like that pick. I do. I like adding an impact defensive player on Tennessee's roster. Carolina at pick 39. Once again, I mentioned they might wait and hope for the offensive lineman to slip. JPJ is a guy who I think could go top 25 in this draft. Could go to the Steelers at pick 20. Slipping all the way to 39 is certainly a value for Carolina, who doesn't have a first round pick, but gets 2 talents that I think could easily go in the first round in Keon Coleman and Jackson Powers Johnson. So Washington, I mentioned, just picked Troy Franklin. They're probably going to be targeting a tackle. Suamadia could certainly be the pick here. He's a guy who's certainly very raw, but Jayden Daniels has elite ability to move in the pocket and escape. So you wouldn't need him to be great right away. You'd hope Jayden Daniels doesn't get hurt, a la Anthony Richardson last year. But I think Jayden Daniels is not nearly the running focused quarterback that Anthony Richardson is. While he certainly has the running ability, I think he's much more inclined to make a passing play. So I like adding Suamadia. Hopefully I never have to say his name again. And I think the talent is certainly there, and Washington hopes that they can develop that. Pick 41 for the Green Bay Packers. It's tough for me not to improve their offensive line. I thought about it in the first round. Zach Frazier is a guy who could certainly do that. Wherever you play him on the interior offensive line, you need to protect Jordan Love. That's priority number 1. And even though they didn't do that in the first round, you do that with pick 41. I feel really good about that. Houston at pick 42. Welcome to the draft, the Houston Texans. No, in all seriousness. Did they not have a pick? Did I miss their pick? I must have missed their pick. No, they didn't. Who did they trade that to? The Vikings? Yeah, the Vikings, huh? Interesting. Okay, pick 42. I think adding a defensive player is certainly where I would have gone had they kept the pick. Braden Fisk could be a guy to add to that defense alongside Will Anderson. Add to that DeMeco Ryans defense. Get to the passer. Good run defender as well. I feel good about that. Atlanta at pick 43. He already drafted at pick 8. I think while you added an impact defensive player up front, you could add an impact defensive player to the defensive backfield. And now we're approaching a point where Shane Restill should be a value here. I mean, Michigan's a blue blood school. I feel good about the value there. I feel good about it. Detroit Lions obviously traded back. Welcome to the draft, Detroit Lions. Pick 44. I mentioned TJ Tampa could slip to them at the corner position, and that's who did here. Kamari Lassiter is certainly interesting, but I like TJ Tampa. Man, Kamari Lassiter, I had going like to the Philadelphia Eagles in the second round, to pick 22 in previous mock drafts, and he's really slipped down the draft boards. But I'll take TJ Tampa here. I think adding another impact player to Dan Campbell's defense is fun. Certainly fun. I just talked about Kamari Lassiter. Saints have a need at corner, and while they haven't filled the need at offensive tackle that I think they desperately need, I think there's some good tackle depth. I think you'd be reaching a little bit for a tackle here. Patrick Paul and the like. I don't know that I could pass up going Kamari Lassiter here. I like that. I like that pick. You add 2 impact defensive players. I know you need to protect Derek Carr, but it also helps Derek Carr, getting him the ball back. Kamari Lassiter, I think, is a fun addition to that Dennis Allen defense. Indianapolis at pick 46. You added a top-end talent in Quinyon Mitchell. I can certainly see them trading out, but I said they need a corner and a wide receiver. Ricky Pearsall, I think, is criminally underrated in this draft. Could be a top 35 pick. I wouldn't be shocked. taking him at 46 here to add another weapon to Indy. You already have Josh Downs. You already have their number one wide receiver that I'm blanking, Michael Pittman. You just add another weapon, right? Jonathan Taylor, you add another weapon for Anthony Richardson and hope he develops. The Giants at pick 47. Man, they didn't get a quarterback in the first round, which I said they desperately needed. But they're sitting here at pick 47 with the ability to take one now. The question is, do they believe in Bo Nix enough to pick him here? Or is there another team that they could trade back with to potentially, get some more draft capital? Because they have needs all over the place. That team in my mind would be Denver. But I don't know that trading back 30 picks and getting not a lot of capital next year is something that they would want to do, which is part of the reason why I think Denver could trade out of that first round pick. But nonetheless, I'm going to have them taking their franchise guy. Is he the franchise guy? I don't know. But he could sit behind Daniel Jones for at least a year. You let him develop. You see what you have. You've given him an elite weapon in Malik Neighbors. Darren Waller, who's maybe gone, maybe there. You're helping to protect him with the offensive line, hopefully improving over the course of the draft. I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in the Giants' future. But anyway, the Jaguars at pick 48. Chris Jenkins certainly could be the pick here. I like adding an impact defensive player for their defense. They certainly need that. I mean, corner here is certainly a need as well. You'd probably be reaching to go for a Max Melton, although I'll probably have him going later in the round. But Chris Jenkins here, certainly a blue blood talent, certainly has the pedigree. It's a solid addition. Cincinnati pick 49. You already got a defensive addition. I could see adding a wide receiver here. Roman Wilson is a guy who sticks out. You could play him as your wide receiver 3 to replace Tyler Boyd. And then if you move on from T. Higgins, you got him alongside Jamar Chase for years to come. Nice addition for Joe Burrow. The Philadelphia Eagles. You already added a corner. You got pick 53. I could see them just making another addition to the defense. Now, whether that's Edgerrin Cooper on the linebacking core, right? Maybe replace Hassan Reddick, or maybe you add Chris Braswell as another addition to that defensive line. I'm going to go Edgerrin Cooper. Just a pure Hassan Reddick replacement from a positional perspective. Now, their games are completely different, obviously. And if Edgerrin Cooper is 75% of Hassan Reddick coming into the first season, I'd be wildly impressed. But nonetheless, he's a positional need. Pittsburgh at pick 51. I mean, I said they could take a corner in the first round, but I couldn't see them not taking a tackle. Max Melton could certainly be the pick here. At Rutgers, wouldn't have to travel far. New Jersey to Pittsburgh. I like that pick. I like that pick a lot. In the previous mock drafts, I had them taking a corner to play alongside Joey Porter Jr. You had Melton. You probably could start him in the slot if you needed to. I like it for Pittsburgh. The LA Rams at pick 52. Listen, you already added a defensive lineman on the outside. What's not to say you add an impact defensive lineman in the middle? Michael Hall Jr., wide receiver is a need. I don't see that. Michael Hall Jr. could certainly be that guy. Maybe you're talk about replacements. Maybe you're Aaron Donald replacement on the interior. And then you got Laiatu coming off the edge. 2 big defensive weapons. I mean, I don't think they necessarily go 2 defensive linemen in the first 2 rounds, but still, that's fun. And the Eagles come back up. I mean, I mentioned they could take Chris Braswell. I like taking Chris Braswell here. You get both of them, the 2 guys I was considering for that 50 pick. Cleveland at pick 54. Peyton Wilson seems like the guy here. You don't have a desperate need at safety. I think Tyler Nubin's got a sliding a little bit. Maybe you make a running back addition because Nick Chubb is certainly coming back from injury. Man, I could see that. I could see that a lot. Do I want to do that? No, I think it's a little too early for Jonathan Brooks. I'm going to go Peyton Wilson here. Next up with the Miami Dolphins, they didn't go offensive lineman in the first round. I think they addressed that now. Cooper Beebe could be the guy. Yeah, I like that. I like that. You add another interior offensive lineman that could start right away or could be an impact depth piece. I like that for them. The Dallas Cowboys, listen, I said Jonathan Brooks was an early pick, but you have a running back from Texas. You have a desperate need at running back. I mean, I know they're in talks with Ezekiel Elliott, but their running back room is empty. Yeah, Jonathan Brooks here, who I think could get 17 carries a game right away. It's a good offensive line. Texas to Dallas. We're having a lot of interstate drafting picks. I like that. I like that a lot. Tampa pick 57. Struggling to speak now. They already added an impact edge rusher. I could see them loading up on the defensive side. Junior Colson could be the guy. I don't buy that wide receiver is a huge need. I like Junior Colson here. Adding another weapon to the to the linebacker core. Clearly, he's having trouble speaking. Different levels of the defense, improving all the way throughout. I could see the third round pick, if they have one, being a member of the defensive backfield. I know their safeties are pretty locked up with additions in the offseason, but certainly could be a nickel back or something of that sort. Pick 58 for the Green Bay Packers. They have need at safety. I mean, you added Nate Wiggins at corner. You could add Tyler Nubin, who I think is the best safety in the draft. Some people think Nate Wiggins is the best corner in the draft. So you add potentially the two best at their positions in the defensive backfield. You also got Zach Frazier to help protect Jordan Love. Wow, 3 first round picks. No, 3 picks in the first 2 rounds that I think are all wins for the Green Bay Packers. Houston, Texas at pick 59. As much as I would like to stick with my original notes, which was to take Marshawn Kneeland, edge from Western Michigan, I think adding a running back is fun here. I like Joe Mixon, but I don't think he's got that many years left in the league. Adding Trey Benson here, because you let, what's his name? Forgetting their starting running back from last year, walk to the Giants. New York Giants depth chart, who obviously lost Saquon Barkley. Devin Singletary is who I'm thinking of. So even he, I thought, underperformed. You add Trey Benson, that's another weapon for that offense, who already has Tank Dell and already has Nico Collins and already has Steph Diggs and already has Joe Mixon and already has Dalton Schultz. That's fun. I like that a lot. Probably a little early for the running back, but nonetheless, I like it. Buffalo at pick 60. I had them taking a wide receiver in the first round. I think safety is such a need, especially with Jordan Poyer going to Miami. Javon Bullard certainly could be the pick here. Detroit at pick 61. Maybe this stops the slide on Kneeland because I had him going earlier in my notes. I think that makes sense for them. Adding an impact defensive player. Boy, him alongside Aiden Hutchinson would certainly be a fun, play on the defense. And then Western Michigan. I didn't even intend that. Western Michigan. Moving my mic. Western Michigan. Let me let it reconnect. Western Michigan wide receiver going to Detroit. Baltimore at pick 62. We only have a couple picks left. Christian Haynes could be a guy who plays interior. If you have to, you can move him outside. You have need on the offensive line. I like that pick for them. I had a UConn. The San Francisco 49ers, I think this could be an insurance wide receiver here. Jalen Polk slid a little bit. I think he could go earlier than this. But if you end up needing to move on from a guy if you end up needing to move on from Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Polk could be that weapon, that replacement. I like that addition. And then the last and certainly not least, Adisa Isaac could be certainly the pick here, but I think you passed up offensive tackle in the first round. Patrick Paul, while a little bit of a reach, I think is a great fit here to help protect Patrick Mahomes. There you have it. 64 picks. I think every team had at least one pick, if I'm not mistaken. This has taken some time to load, so bear with me. 3 pretty major trades, right? We had the Chargers trading back, Minnesota trading up for JJ McCarthy. We had the New York Jets trading up for Rome Odunze, the Tennessee Titans trading back, and then the Las Vegas Raiders trading up for their franchise quarterback Michael Penix Jr. with the Detroit Lions. So a lot of fun here. I think a 2-round mock is, I'm going to slowly scroll through this so you can read through and see where you want to yell at me in the comments. I think a lot of mocks are fun when we just do the first round, but with a second round, I think it gives me an option to really address 2 needs, right? The Miami Dolphins are a perfect example. I had them take a Johnny Newton here, even though I think the need is at offensive tackle, or at least offensive line. And then you come back and you add an offensive lineman in the second round. I'm going to scroll a little faster here to get to that pick. That's right. It was Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State. We go back up here. I think that's great. I mean, similar to San Francisco, right? You add Rakestraw. You have a need at wide receiver too. You feel that at the end of the second round. I like it. I like doing 2 round mocks. I would do all 7 rounds if I have this, if I had the stamina for it, but I would die. I would die. I'm struggling to do 2 rounds and talk about all the picks all the way through. But that's that. I like the way this turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think I missed on anybody? Do you think any of my trades were bad? Do you think any of my picks were awful? Or do you like everything? If so, let me know that. I appreciate your comments in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe if you have not already. This is my last mock draft of the mock draft season. I'm a little sad, but still subscribe for other content. We're going to be covering football as we get into the NFL season. We're going to be talking about baseball, talking about the NBA playoffs, of course. So subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell to get notified when we do release a new video. Thank you for watching the Quick Thoughts episode, this final mock draft of the season. I hope you enjoy and have fun watching the draft. It's a lot of fun. Best of luck to everyone that's in it. All the guys, if anybody's watching this, I doubt you are, but shout out to you. Hope you do well in the NFL. Thanks for watching. Peace out.